Shalom. We are continuing now with Psalm 49. For the leader of the Korahites, a psalm. Hear this, all you peoples, give ear, all inhabitants of the world, men of all estates, rich and poor alike. My mouth utters wisdom, my speech is full of insight. I will turn my attention to a theme, set forth my lesson to the music of a lyre. In time of trouble, why should I fear the encompassing evil of those who would supplant me? Men who trust in their riches, who glory in their great wealth? It cannot redeem a man or pay his ransom to God. The price of life is too high, and so one ceases to be forever. Shall he live eternally and never see the grave? For one sees that the wise die, that the foolish and ignorant both perish, leaving their wealth to others. Their grave is their eternal home, the dwelling place for all generations of those once famous on earth. Man does not abide in honor, he is like the beasts that perish. Such is the fate of those who are self-confident, the end of those pleased with their own talk, Selah. Sheep-like, they head for Sheol, with death as their shepherd. The upright shall rule over them at daybreak, and their form shall waste away in Sheol till its nobility be gone. But God will redeem my life from the clutches of Sheol, for he will take me, Selah. Do not be afraid when a man becomes rich, when his household goods increase. For when he dies, he can take none of it along. His goods cannot follow him down. Though he congratulates himself in his lifetime, they must admit that you did well by yourself. Yet he must join the company of his ancestors, who will never see daylight again. Man does not understand honor. He is like the beasts that perish. It's a very interesting psalm. In fact, this psalm has been assigned by Jewish tradition as a psalm that is read in houses of mourning, in Shiva houses, during or at the end of the morning service and of the evening service. I must admit that over the years, when faced with the opportunity to have this psalm read in houses of mourning, I have often passed up on it. If you think about the stark tone of the English translation, which accurately reflects the Hebrew, I've often felt that it may not be the kind of comforting message that mourners can receive. So most commonly I would replace the reading of this psalm with something like Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, or like Psalm 121, I lift my eyes to the mountains, from whence comes my help. My help comes from the Lord, creator of heaven and earth. But this psalm, this is a tough one. Man does not understand honor. He is like the beasts that perish. That can be hard for mourners to hear. The psalm seems to reflect a common biblical view that death is the end, that there is really no life beyond the grave, and this was a part of the most prevalent biblical theology, and it changed as the centuries went on and as we moved from biblical times into the time of rabbinic thought and rabbinic teachings, at which point the sages adopted a very, very strong belief and opinion in the existence of a world to come, or an afterlife, a life beyond the grave. But it wasn't always that way in our religion. And in biblical times, it was common to hear teachings such as this one. Shall he live eternally and never see the grave? Everybody dies, the rich as well as the poor. Everyone's fate is the same. And as the psalmist reminds us here, their grave is their eternal home, the dwelling place for all generations of those once famous on earth. Everyone winds up in the same place, whether famous or not, whether wealthy or not, whether righteous or not. The grave is the ultimate end, the great equalizer. And so, even though I have usually chosen not to read this psalm in houses of mourning, when you think about it, its message goes actually very deep and provides us with, I think, a very constructive lesson in how to live. The image of the wealthy person cannot bring his household goods or his wealth or anything along with him to the grave seems to be a reference to some cultures and religions, such as those found in Egypt, where it was common to see people buried or entombed along with some of their material goods and possessions, almost as if they are carrying their wealth into the afterlife. Biblical religion heartily rejected that idea and believed that when we die, we carry nothing away and take nothing with us. Our glory cannot be brought into the next world, they believed. Our glory simply resides in the hearts and minds of those who come after us, who remember us lovingly and with honor. But this message of a rejection of an afterlife, I think, is useful and constructive, even though personally I don't believe it, and I strongly hold to the idea of a life beyond the grave and an afterlife. I believe in it with all my heart. And yet, going back to the Bible's idea that we carry nothing away and that we don't go beyond the grave in life, can teach us a lesson that I think is important, which is we don't aspire towards righteous or good living. We don't set as a goal the practice of being good and kind and compassionate and helpful to one another. We don't try to live a life of service with the idea of some kind of payback as a result. We don't do it to gain a place in an afterlife or heaven. We don't live righteously in order to gain salvation. Instead, living well, doing well, being of service to others, we do this not for motivation of a reward, but simply out of the motivation of knowing that it is simply the right thing to do. We may feel good doing it, and that's, I think, a good byproduct of it, and that's fine. But it's not in order to gain a good feeling or to gain some kind of material or even spiritual reward. We do it simply because it is the right thing to do. And if we were to be in the other person's shoes whom we're helping, if we were to be the beneficiary of our service, we would want that other person to help us as well. And so, in a way, we put ourselves in the other person's shoes and imagine what would it feel like if we needed help and our calls for help were rejected. And so, knowing that, we simply try to do the next best thing, to try to do the next right thing without having in mind a reward or salvation or a place in the next world, but simply to know that with each step that we take in life, we're trying to do the best we can. Thank you.